Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Stories to Share. My name is Joe Steinfeld. I'm the moderator of the series, and today we have the 6th session of the 3rd season. And once again, I'm very glad to see a large turnout, and we have people also joining us online. How many of you are here for the first time for Stories to Share? Excellent, excellent. Well, you picked a good one. Today's speaker, as you know, is a New Hampshire institution. She's the keeper of the tradition. Many of us remember Folkways, that wonderful Peterborough spot. And as we all know, Kate McNally has been providing music to New Hampshire Public Radio listeners now for 28 years. And as I always do before these sessions, I had a chat with today's speaker and I said, Kate, how much longer are you going to do this? And she said, indefinitely. Now, Kate has had an interesting life in Alaska. In fact, she was there recently. If you corner her afterwards on her iPhone, she can show you the sun rising at, 10 in the morning, the moonlight, and the northern lights. I think if you haven't been there or you haven't seen them, we should all go together. And she's lived in Texas, but basically she's very much a New Hampshire person. And for newcomers, I will say that all of our speakers are from the Monadnock region. That's one of the requirements. And the other is that they have stories to share. So welcome, Kate McNally.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who may have thought you were coming to see Katie McNally, the esteemed fiddle player, I'm not her. She's blonde and I'm, well, not blonde. And she plays an extraordinary fiddle and I play records, okay? So if you need to, go ahead, feel free to leave, get your refund, or just politely stay and you'll hear some music from a couple other musical giants in my esteem. Thank you to Joseph Steinfeld and Ed Wodasak, as well as the other folks who make this Stories to Share series happen. I really am honored that I've been chosen to share my story with you tonight. There's so many brilliant guests in this series and still more to come. So this is my story about folk, community, and good fortune. So I remember doing visiting a radio station when I was a kid. I was a brownie. Anybody here ever a brownie? Okay, there you go. And everyone got to pick out a 45 from a big bin. Everybody know what a 45 is? Okay. So I pulled out a Clancy Brothers 45 called I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen. Oh, very interesting. My name's Kathleen. And I just thought it's meant to be. And it was. I should have known then, but I really didn't get it. Everybody know what this is?
Yeah.
What is it?
Transistor radio.
It's a transistor radio, and I loved listening to the transistor radio. I really loved listening to Mystery Theater. When I would visit New Hampshire during the summer, we would come and stay in Chesham, and I would listen in our tent to the transistor. I'd had a book called Nellie Bly Around the World in 80 Days, and I just loved those summers. The sounds of the Chesham night, the backdrop for whatever play happened to be on Mystery Theater that night. And that was really just when there weren't any Red Sox games. There were Red Sox games, of course there were. So breathe deep, and you might just smell summer around the corner. those days were really special for me. We'd visit my mom's best friend, Iva, and the story is that she made coffee so strong you could stand a spoon up in it. And that was my mom's community, and it was part of my community. It was a deck of cards, strong coffee, and baseball on the radio. My community in Alaska growing up was quite a bit different than what I experienced during those summers. It was insulated and isolated on a military base in Alaska. Our neighborhood really, really active in the summer. We had Friday night fish fries, salmon, sometimes halibut, and kids rolling recklessly, dangerously, so much fun, in enormous airplane inner tubes. You get inside it and then roll. So much fun. You gotta make sure you're holding on to the little stem though, otherwise it could poke your eye out. So we had so much fun playing hide and seek till the wee hours of the night during these long and really light days under the midnight sun in the summer. So really close community. It was an outpost in the far northwest of what we call the lower 48. And as a preteen, this is a little side thing, I got to go on the 7-Up Club. And the 7-Up Club was like a dance program, kind of like American Bandstand, only it was really cool, and it was aired on one of the 2 television stations that we had access to. Kids lined up at the TV station for hours just to get in, to be on TV, to dance, to whatever there was. Maybe it was the Archies or the Archies. So somewhere along the line, my sister, who was 12 years older than me, turned me on to this band called Buffalo Springfield. And that was Neil Young and Jim Messina and Stephen Stills. And this was after, of course, she taught me about Elvis, and she taught me to jitterbug. She taught me how to twist. Those days were really fun too. I mean, I'm sure she didn't really appreciate it. She was older, and there I was, 6 years old, twisting and jitterbugging. But what I learned during those times when I was also turned on to the Everly Brothers and those sweet, sweet brother harmonies was about Buffalo Springfield and how much different they were than the monkeys I'd been playing my badminton racket to in the basement. It was the Buffalo Springfield music and Stephen Stills and Neil Young. It was more serious. It wasn't so poppy. And my taste started evolving. And it was that thoughtfulness that I really started to appreciate. I remember seeing Janis Joplin on TV on the Johnny Carson show, and I thought, man, I cannot understand those words. That woman is screaming. And then I saw Bob Dylan, and I was like, man, that guy cannot sing. That guy cannot sing. And I was such a snob, but you know what? I was only 13, but what a poet. What a poet. And what a legend. We're so lucky to have had Bob Dylan. When my father retired here in New Hampshire, my community changed. I was all of a sudden like immersed into like a community with greasers, rednecks, farmers, stoners, jocks, and there's some normies in there too, some hippies. It was a far cry from the insulated environment that I was used to on a military base. And then, so my teen years were really spent acclimating to what we military dependents called civilian life. I'm not sure which was more civilian, but anyway, I gravitated toward drama club and music, and found great joy and harmony and singing with others in community. And that's really when my community of music started to take shape around music. I still love that. I still really get goosebumps when I hear good harmony. I listen to Carole King, Janis Ian, Jim Croce, all things Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Simon and Garfunkel, just to name a few. Also, I can't forget James Taylor. I still love the Kingston Trio, and I loved Eddie Arnold. God didn't make little green apples, and it don't rain in Indianapolis in the summertime. I loved Roger Miller, Dang Me, and Homer and Jethro. And Jethro Burns, I would learn later, was an incredible mandolin player. And I also loved Loretta Lynn. My mom turned me on to that. Then in college, I was turned on to the Grateful Dead. Songs like El Paso, Me and My Uncle, Big Boss Man and I Know You Rider. Those songs triggered memories for me of Marty Robbins and Johnny Cash playing on my mom's record player. The music was like a thread that kept me connected to home and a sense of place. Me not quite ready to let go of the sensation of my mom stroking my hair as a child, or the aroma of Sunday dinner and fresh baked bread. You know, music has a way of doing that, right? It gives us a sense of place. In a flash, we can be transported to another place and time that involves all of our senses, leaving us with maybe a sigh or a tear or simply just a sense of connectedness, kind of like a hug for the mind, a hug in the memory. So in college, I lived down the hill from the Stone Church in Newmarket, and there were groups like a band called Lunch at the Dump, no kidding, and a group called Smoochin'. They performed there, and Sunday nights were pretty special. They'd have a nice dinner at the Stone Church, and Phil Morrissey frequented the Stone Church quite a bit when he was just coming around. And you know, those were really interesting times for me. I was very young. But the funny thing is that my apartment had a large replica of dog manure. Seriously. Big replica of dog manure in the yard that the person that lived there before apparently was like a pottery major or something and wanted to have some utility out of this thing. And so my roommate tied his dog to that big pile. It's not there anymore. I know it's not there anymore because they paved it out, you know, they tore it down. And it became a parking lot for a bank in Newmarket. And then I understand that that bank might have been financing the Seabrook nuclear power plant. It was like a construction work in progress thing. And so speaking of Seabrook, we'll talk about that later. My favorite class at UNH was communications. I sat in an auditorium with I don't know how many other freshmen that all wanted to be part of the communications thing, whether it was TV, radio, or whatever. I just loved the idea of communications. And I loved the idea of philosophy. I wanted to be a philosophy major. You know, that's not really an employable skill, I don't think, but here's what I remember about the communications class is Marshall McLuhan, and a medium is the message. Meaning, each medium is a unique type of environment whose widespread use reshapes people and culture. Sounds about right, right? Thank you, Marshall McLuhan. My medium has become radio. That class and the college, and the college lifestyle, swallowed me up and spit me out. And I returned home with a better appreciation for Jackson Browne, Little Feat, and the Grateful Dead, a few bands from that time. A lot of my friends quit college, and they hit the road to follow the Dead. I got married. They did that, I did that. I moved to South Carolina where I got turned on to this radio station called 3WZ down on the farm. It was really the coolest radio station ever. They played really awesome music. They played like Joni Mitchell and Bonnie Raitt, B.B. King. You know, music that I had never really been turned on to before. I was just loving the music. And it seems like I've always gravitated to the independent music rather than what you hear on the top 40 dial. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I thought I was what I wanted to be when I grew up. I thought that's what I was going to be. I was the mom of an adorable little girl. Her name was Leo. I thought her name was Gaelic when we named her. Turns out it's Hebrew. I was a wife, and I was a waitress in a pizza shop that served free peanuts. And you'll talk about a place in time. I can kind of still smell the pizza and beer in my hair from Dino's Pizza Parlor. Charleston, South Carolina was really nice, but it wasn't New England. There's no seasons there. I love the seasons of New England. I loved being in New Hampshire. And so we moved back here to get closer to home. And we lived at Keene State College where my husband was able to take advantage of the GI Bill. And so I should credit him for exposing me to doing radio because he was involved in radio. So he kind of got me into it, but don't tell him I said that. So college radio, so my first time in the radio station really was not my most stellar moment. College radio was a little loosey-goosey back then. He had a few friends in the studio, because that's what we did at college radio. We had people in the studio. You know, we chatted, multitask, and put on records. And so, tidy, helpful person that I was, I took the record album from the turntable, I put it away while everybody was chatting, and then someone realized that, hey, wasn't that the album that was playing? So there I was, and there was like 50 watts of dead air. Nothing on the air because I was trying to be tidy and helpful. So it was very, very quiet. So I didn't know if I could ever go back there, but I ended up going back. And there was this station at this time that we got turned on to as well called WSLE in Peterborough. Mm-hmm. They call it the Folks Station. And much of the music reminded me of our days in Charleston. It had jazz and it had folk music and it had just really nice independent music and really relatable hosts. In fact, my husband and I listened from our hospital room in Peterborough requesting a song from the radio station, such a groupie. I was a huge fan of Mary DeRozier and her Banished Misfortune program, but this particular request was during the day. She wasn't on the air, but the DJ was very kind to us and played Sugar Magnolia in honor of our new baby girl, Maggie. It was like we had a connection. We had a connection in time and a community of friends united by the power of music. That was WSLE at that time, for me. One of my friends here tonight has been in Peterborough for quite a long time, and I've invited her to play a song. So Ms. Wendy Keith, what can you play for us?
Thank you, Kate. Hello, everybody. I am planning the first of the two songs that I'm going to do today is a cover of a song that I recorded several years ago by one of the best singer-songwriters I've had the privilege of calling my friend, Julie Snow. And this song is it's called Cracks in the Sky, which is kind of a reference to a Leonard Cohen quote. And it starts off very sad and a little bit dark, but then it makes a turn, so be ready for the turn. Oh, hang on 1 second. Let's get this capo doing its job here. That's better. Okay. Sometimes it's so dark, there's no light at the end of your tunnel. Sometimes it's so cold, you're chilled to the bone. Sometimes you're so sad, you've lost the best thing that you've ever had. Sometimes you're so sad, you just want to go home. Crawl into your bed, pull the covers right over your head, and you pray for relief, for a long, dreamless sleep. But keep your eye on the cracks in the sky, where an angel might slip through. Just when you thought all your chances were shot, she'll wrap her soft wings around you. Her warm hand on your back, just a few words, or the soft gift of silence. She'll sit by your side and she'll wait for you to mend. In the end, there's no medicine that can heal like the sweet kiss of kindness. It seals up that dark hole so you can start over again. You belong to the band of the broken-hearted. They'll open their arms to you. It's a blessing and a privilege to keep their company. You will learn this too. So keep your eye on the cracks in the sky where an angel might slip through. Just when you thought all your chances were shot, she'll wrap her soft wings, oh, she'll wrap her soft wings, she'll wrap her soft wings around you.
Just a gorgeous song, Cracks in the Sky, written by Julie Snow, who spends part of her time in Nelson, New Hampshire, and also lives in Cambridge, another part of the year. She's written some of my favorite songs. You know, another thing happened when I hung out with a friend at the radio station in college. My friend invited me to hang out with her at the radio station, and then she went home to get something, and she never came back. And so that meant that I needed to fumble my way through some semblance of a program. And fortunately for me, I fumbled okay, and the station manager said, you know, you should get your FCC license, which you needed then. You should take the test and sign up for a slot. So that was all as a result of my friend playing that prank on me. And I loved practicing. I would be in front of the mic going, this is WKNH 91.3. This is 91.3 WKNH. I was ready. I practiced. So I was all set. And then not that long after that, my husband and I parted ways, and I went back to school, and I resumed my studies. I created a radio program at Keene State. It was called Fiddlesticks. I did that for like 6 years. It was a Sunday afternoon from 4 to 7 featuring Celtic, acoustic, bluegrass music, kind of what you hear on Sunday nights if you tune in to the folk show. Back then we played long playing records. Remember those? Long playing records. There were two sides. And one album, and it's kind of tricky sometimes. You have to feel for the little thing, the spindle thing in the middle, get it just right. But I got pretty good at finding that little thing. One of the albums I really, really liked that really inspired me was an album by a fiddle player named Mark O'Connor. He had this really cool album. It was a nice album cover. I like album covers because I can read them. So, you know, CDs are a little harder now. But this album called On the Rampage, it had a picture of him barefooted on a skateboard on a bridge with the sun setting behind him. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. But then you turned on the music and he did this song called Opus 1, Come Ride With Me. And he started off the song with, hello, come ride with me. I kind of had some thoughts, maybe that's how I would start my show, but I never did. But I gotta tell you, I never heard the fiddle played like the fiddle was played on that album. Mark O'Connor, what a master. And that was like an inspiration for me to find more master musicians and share them with my little, trusted but faithful college radio audience. Some Sundays I'd only get music that I'd never heard before. You know, I'd go through the library and I'd just pick things out I'd never heard of and plop it on the spindle just to see what would happen. But I gotta tell you, for Sundays, for the past 43 years, I've dedicated Sundays, that one day a week, in one way or another, at one station or another, to music and to my interest in sharing the music that inspires me or interests me. And that is what I'm talking about tonight, is a little bit about folk music. So let me just say, what I have learned over the years has come from reading liner notes and reading record jackets and CD covers. I used Alan Lomax's Field Recordings, Folk Songs of America book as a reference, and other authors like Scott Alaric, who was a wonderful reviewer and a musician, worked at the Boston Globe. I learned by being curious. That's what I was taught from a journalism professor at Kane State College. She said, you just have to be curious. Her name was Shirley Ketty. I'll never forget her saying, just be curious. So that was great advice for me. Just be curious. Another influence was Lou Dumont. He just had the smoothest voice ever. He did radio, he taught radio. He told me, he did a program called 78s and 33s. Eventually, he retired to the Cape where he did a program there. But you could often hear his voice booming out over those 50 watts or even up the 50,000 watts at the local radio station. And he said, and just the nicest man, he said, just be yourself. Just be yourself at the mic. Be so authentic that somebody in the grocery line will recognize your voice. So I've always just tried to be who I am, warts and all, okay? While I was a student at Kane State, I got support from an organization called Women for Higher Education. I was a non-traditional student, a single mom of two daughters. And through that organization, I met a lot of other families who were just dipping their toes in the world of academia. I met women who were part of an organization to stop construction of the Seabrook nuclear plant. See, I told you I'd come back to Seabrook eventually. These folks were really inspirational. They were very passionate. And they were so passionate that they ended up in jail over on the seacoast as part of an action by the Clamshell Alliance. And being one of their neighbors and friends, I see the logical choice to finish details to put on a show that they had all planned. And now they're in jail. So I had my first opportunity to help put on a show. It was in the Mabel Brown room at Kane State College. And it featured a band called Bright Morning Star, which featured the amazing talent of a wonderful activist named Charlie King and Marcia Taylor. There were a lot of others, but I can't remember them all. And I don't remember how that concert happened. I just know it happened. And just doing that concert that evening gave me some confidence. And it was really the beginning of my opportunity to somehow be of service to my college community and to learn how to do things like that. I didn't really have the confidence before that, because remember, I was the waitress in a pizza shop. I didn't attend a lot of shows. I was a young single mom, but the shows that were most memorable to me were the few shows that I saw in Peterborough at the Folkway that Joseph mentioned. The folk music venue, the Folkway, was where I had the honor of seeing Kate Wolf, and I saw Louis Collins, Chris Smither, Orrin Starr, Gary Mihalik, and the late, great John Hartford. Many legendary folk musicians passed through there. I could not, we'd be here for a couple days if I mentioned all of those people that graced the Folkway stage. It was an entity unto itself, and the staff and volunteers kind of like breathed in the Folkway energy. That's what it seemed like. They were a community, the Folkway community. I just love, there's an album called Baptism of Fire by Louis Collins, and that album was recorded, at least in part, at the Folkway. Baptism of Fire, coincidentally, is a tune written by Julie Snow, who wrote that first song, Cracks in the Sky. When you listen to the album, and I think the album is what you gotta listen to, the vinyl, because when you listen to the album Baptism of Fire, you can almost hear community in the grooves. On songs like Rudy Toot Toot for the Moon and the song The Wildflower Song, you can almost hear the voices in those chairs at those tables. If you ever need a lift, check out the Baptism of Fire album, because it's really nice, and you can listen to the CD if you really have to. You don't have to find the vinyl. But if, I was sad to see the Folkway go, even though I didn't go there a whole lot. I know, though, that there are so many people that are still grieving the closing of those hallowed doors. Soon after my stint, or actually during my stint at Keene State College Radio, I was hired at WKNE to work there as doing an overnight job. And, that was a tough choice for me. Actually, I was feeding my children, doing pretty okay, working at a ball bearing factory. And I did my radio show once a week. And there they were saying, come do radio and do it overnight. And I wasn't really sure that was the best, career move, but it was so glamorous. Radio. Remember, I'm the groupie, right? Radio. I ended up doing all things commercial for radio. I did copywriting, I was a production manager, I was a midday host, overnight host, morning drive host. I knew Bruins, Celtics, Red Sox, Patriots. I did all the sports things. And then on Sundays, my respite was the lighter side. And I used to have fun saying out loud on the mic, 50,000 watts of folk. Sounded so good. 50,000 watts of folk. Yeah. Get jazzed, everybody. It was 6 a.m. We're doing 50,000 watts of it. One of the benefits from doing that program while I was there for 6 years, and one of the benefits was that, venues, there was this venue in Keene called Chalkboard West, and they used to have some incredible performers there. They had a group called Aztec Two-Step. They had, Devon Square played there, Tom Dean, Devon Square. And I was introduced to this other singer-songwriter who's pretty astounding. And that is somebody that Andy Cowing, a champion for musicians at the Chalkboard West, introduced me to a wonderful performer and a longtime friend of 40 years, Tom Perzoli. Tom, could you please play something for us? Tom Perzoli, everybody.
So, I just love Kate. And Stevie Wonder was born the same year as me, and I wish I could just play, "Isn't she lovely?" but I don't quite have it in me, so I have to play something that I know. But she's a great person. It's great to see her stuff. And out there, she's talking about the Folkway. Stan Rogers and Garnet Rogers used to play there a lot, and Garnet sold me this guitar last year, and I'm very, very happy to hear that. This is like a great guitar, and he's a great guy, and I have no idea why I wrote this song, but I'm not playing anything too serious, but sometimes we don't always feel like we want to be in the human body. So this song says, I wish I was a frog out in the pond. I'd kiss a princess with a magic wand. I'd turn into a prince. I'd be handsome and tall. Live happily ever after in a castle wall. Frog in a pond with a magic wand. I'd turn into a prince and I'd be gone. I wish I was a whale in the deep blue sea. I'd have great big waves crashing over me. I'd dive to the bottom, go way down deep. Blow a great big geyser everybody could see. Whale in the deep blue sea. Spraying all the people taking pictures of me. Yeah, but I'm just a man and I'm sitting here, spinning through space on a big blue sphere. I am living and loving just as best as I can. Whenever I see you, darling, I know how lucky I am. When I have kids in the audience, I have them throw out animals at me. I try to make something up, but I'll stick with something I know tonight. I'd like to be a bird in the atmosphere, way up there looking way down here. I built myself a nest over in your eaves, and my friends could come in and they could visit me. A bird up there looking way down here from the atmosphere. I wish I had some magic wings like a bee. I'd have honey in a nest high up in a tree. I could visit a flower, eat for free, fly so fast nobody could see me. Be on a flower, I'd be passing time in the summer sun on a honey vine. Bird up there looking way down here, a whale in the sea diving way down deep. Be on a wait a minute, frog in a pond with a magic wand. I'd turn into a prince and I'd be gone. And I'm just a man sitting here, I'm spinning through space on a big blue sphere, and I'm living in love and just as best I can. When I'm with you, darling, I know how lucky I am. Sometimes I wish I was a frog or a fish, but you sure know how to make me glad that I'm your man. Well, you sure know how to make me glad that I'm your man. You make me so glad that I am your man. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, not only is Tom Pirozzoli an incredible songwriter and musician, but he is a wonderful painter. I am so in awe of his talent and also grateful for his support, but you should definitely visit his website to see his paintings. And sometimes he does exhibits with music and his artwork around New England. So if you can get to see one of his shows, I really think you should check it out. Check out his website as well. This was just happened to be the one that caught my eye, but so sweet, beautiful. Thank you, Tom, for sharing all of your talent. You know, I got an album in the mail at WKNE when I was doing the program. It was called The Lighter Side from 6 to 10, Sunday mornings. It was kind of like, I thought, used to like to kid that it was like the name of a Friendly's breakfast, The Lighter Side. Don't forget, it's 50,000 watts of folk, but it was like, it sounded like a Friendly's breakfast. But anyway, I got this album for a Bluegrass Music Festival. I mean, I got an album. It's a scholarship album, and also a license plate that said Winterhawk on it. And what it was a promotion to tell the community and radio listeners about a scholarship program for young musicians that they were doing. And so the proceeds from the album actually went to benefit the scholarship programs and the programs that they did for youth, in addition to promoting this festival. And I didn't know much about bluegrass, like Rocky Top, that's what I knew about bluegrass. But I did really have a great appreciation for education, and I really super wanted to support youth. So it kind of drew me in, and I was exposed through that process and by attendance at the festival to a whole new level of master musicians and a whole other community of people who like master musicians. And I thought it was just a bunch of yee-haw, but it turned out it's not yee-haw. It was like, oh wow, this is really great. I love live music for that reason, especially like being outdoors when it's nice out, seeing the music. And also, I got to volunteer, and I also got to learn how to MC. They had a workshop about MCing. And this guy named Ron Thomason from a band called Dry Branch Fire Squad. I mean, first thing I learned, he's like, always carry a clipboard. So I did that for a lot of years, but it's a little hard sometimes if you got papers in there to get them out, So, but he was just really kind to share his talent behind the mic, whether you're fronting a band or emceeing at a show or a music festival. So I've had the opportunity to MC at a lot of different festivals around the Northeast. I really enjoy that. I enjoy being part of the scene and being up close and personal. On April Fool's Day in 1992, after my morning drive shift, and I don't know if it was because I had invited my dog in to howl on April Fool's Day or what exactly happened, but when I did get up, because he liked to sing happy birthday, no kidding. If you can imagine, but that was his howl. He loved that song. His ears always perked up. But my program director said, we won't be needing you anymore. We are downsizing. And that was like another term for we're automating, because they really didn't need people anymore. I think that was part of it. I don't know. But my job as a live person was replaced by a more techno-advanced system. They did say, however, that I could continue doing my Sunday morning 50,000 watts of folk, but I couldn't do a part-time thing. I needed a real job. And they said, but you can continue to be part of the family. I thought, well, my family, who's going to feed my family? And so I ended up doing some part-time jobs, working for a radio station in Vermont with program director Tim Tobin, who was on the staff of SLE and also former staff member at the Newport Folk Festival. I worked up there, and I also worked at a radio station in Greenfield, Massachusetts called WRSI. Now I think they call it The River. And those two radio stations had wonderful formats with independent artists that I still love to this day. I worked there for 8 years every weekend. And Jim Olson and Tim Tobin, just wonderful human beings. Jim Olson went on to found a record company called Signature Sounds. And he has been and probably always will be a real champion for independent artists. And then I realized that in order to pay for the insurance and everything, I needed a real job. So I've been working in the nonprofit sector ever since 1992. That's where I really found a home. And then about that time when everything seemed to be kerfuffled, Carl Watanabe from NHPR invited me to do the folk show. That was like 28 years ago. He invited me to do the folk show. I filled in a couple times for the then host Dan Murphy, and then he just said, "Hey, you want to do it?" And I was so happy. I was so thrilled. I took my books with me. I took my folk encyclopedia. I took my Rise Up Singing book. And I took my Scott Alric book, Deep Community. I took all these books. I had all my resources. And he said, whoa, 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 whoa. People don't care what you know. They just want to hear the music. So that's probably the third best advice I ever got. Just keep it about the music. Nobody really wants to know what Kate McNally knows. So when I read somewhere I have an encyclopedic knowledge, I'm like, if I did, I don't have it anymore. So I got to do this show, and I had great support from a volunteer. She volunteered at the station probably for 30 years until she passed away. I've got to say, she was a huge Shaw Brothers fan. Anybody know who the Shaw Brothers are? They did that song, New Hampshire Naturally, and I Like to Teach the World to Sing. She was a huge fan of theirs. And they came in to do a live set. They were twin brothers, Ron and Rick. And they were in the studio, this was live, and they were playing, and the boom for the microphone started slipping down. And these were very tall men. And so Rick or Ron, I'm not sure which one, they were twins, just kept going down, down, down. And he was practically playing his banjo on one knee. And they never did come back. I don't know if that's why, but I also stopped doing live interviews, largely because now we're on the 6th floor, and it's a real pain in the neck to get people up and down the elevator. So I pre-record them, usually on Sunday afternoons. I bring people in. So I want to talk about the interviews, some of the people that have come through. But first, I want to hear another one from Tom Pirozzoli. Tom, do you have another song you could play?
Oh yeah, sure. Do you guys want me to do, will you sing along? If I do a song, you can sing along?
Sure. Yeah, they will.
Yeah? All right. And I'm going to do a song by a buddy of mine named John Gorka, and this is kind of a little bit like he's not sure he wants to be a person either. haven't done the song in a bit, but I kind of played it once at home this afternoon. We'll see how I remember it. When I grow up, I want to be a tree. Want to make my home with the birds and bees and the squirrels. They can count on me when I grow up to be a tree. I'll let my limbs get stiff, put my feet in the ground, take winters off, settle down. I'll keep my clothes till they turn brown. When I grow up, I'm going to settle down. Now, this is your part. I'm going to reach, and I'm going to reach. I'm going to reach. I'm going to reach. Reach for the sky. I'm going to reach. You're good. I'm going to reach. I'm going to reach till I know why. Till I know why. See, this is why I have a Pete Seeger haircut. You see? Now when the spring comes around, I'm gonna get real green. When the dogs come around, I'm gonna get real mean. On windy days, I'll bend and lean. When I grow up, I'm gonna get real green. If I should fall in storm or slumber, please don't turn me into lumber. I'd rather be a Louisville slugger, swinging for the seats. You guys ready? 'Cause I'm gonna reach, I'm gonna reach, I'm gonna reach, reach for the sky. Open your mouth. I'm gonna reach, I'm gonna reach, I'm gonna reach till I know why. Yeah, when I grow up, I'm gonna be a tree. I'm gonna make my home with the birds and bees. The squirrels can count on me when I grow up to be a tree. One more time, 'cause I'm gonna reach. I'm gonna reach. I'm gonna reach. Reach for the sky. Yeah, I'm gonna reach. I'm gonna reach. I'm gonna reach. Till I know why, till I know why. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. That was great. You know, John Gorka was one of the folks that came by the studio. He's been by a few times. He came by with a group called Red Horse. That was Eliza Gilkison and Lucy Kaplansky. Were doing a little trio thing for a while, and they recorded a wonderful album called Red Horse. But he's also been by just a couple times. What a nice, nice man he is. Support his music if you get a chance. He's also written some really incredible tunes, but what a wonderful guest he was. Other guests that came by, including John Gorka, well, Tom and Wendy have been by, Katie Curtis, Garnet Rogers, Tom Paxton, talked to him on the phone, Cheryl Wheeler came by, Tom Rush, Bela Fleck, Bill Staines, Gordon Bach, Harvey Reid, Joyce Anderson, David Surratt, the late David Surratt, Susie Burke, Dave Mallet, Tom Rush, just a few of the folks that have stopped in. We've also had some local folks maybe you're more familiar with, Decatur Creek, Malcolm Douglas, Loudon Wainwright came by, Tim O'Brien, the Mammals, they're going to be doing a show nearby pretty soon, and the great Julie Snow, as well as a group that used to be together in Keene called Anima Terra. We had a whole studio full of these gals that came in to sing, and I also had 13 fiddles, no, not fiddles, that would be easier, 13 Irish harps in the studio. 13 Irish harps, the Irish Harp Orchestra came by, and it was really fun. It was amazing to see all these harps in one place. And another great resource, Jim Rooney, who's just an amazing gentleman, longtime producer for people like John Prine and Nancy Griffith and Iris DeMint. So I've had the pleasure of interviewing lots of folks in my time. The list goes on and on. I also interviewed on the phone Nancy Griffith. It was horrible. horrible. Never, I was at my job and talking, I worked in a soup kitchen, and I was in, like, near where they keep the freezer for everything, and trying to talk into this microphone, this telephone, and neither Nancy or I could hear each other. It's just disgusting. And I also did a really horrible phone interview with Doc Watson that consisted mostly of yes and no answers. I don't do phone interviews anymore. It's awful. You know, it's awful. I want to see people in person. I want to see them in person. So, and that was a long time ago. So, those folks that I mentioned, they all fit into my bucket for folk music. But the bucket is so much bigger than the little dibble drabble that I mentioned. So, who's on my dream list for people to stop in? Well, Joni Mitchell, Brandi Carlile. She's pretty amazing. Daryl Scott's a great songwriter. He wrote a song called You'll Never Leave Harlan Alive. Just an incredible songwriter. I love his voice too. Greg Brown, would love to have him come Rudy Toot Toot in my studio. Iris DeMent, Joan Baez, Billy Strings is pretty awesome. Young talent. He's an amazing guitar player. And of course, Bob Dylan. Hey, Bob. And Steve Earle. I'd like to sit down and chat with Steve Earle as well. So if you know any of those folks, you know, just tell them I said hi, and then I'll put the kettle on if they want to come by the station. So, I got to meet with. Did I tell you I got to see him? We had a nice chat. I was hours long. Really, it was a long conversation with Arlo Guthrie. So usually when I have people at the studio, I like them to play music. Because remember I said, Carl Watanabe said, it's about the music. Well, Arlo Guthrie had a lot to say, and I still have those recordings of our visit, and I got to visit him near where Alice's restaurant was. That was really very cool. There was folk music before Kate McNally. In 1981, WeVo launched, and they had a program called Just Folk. The station had folk music on Saturday nights from 8 to midnight, and Sundays from 6 to 11 at one point. And I believe when I first started at the folk show, it was from 7 to 11, and somewhere along the line it got trimmed down. And you know what, I gotta tell you, I'm gonna be honest, every time a fund drive would happen, and they'd say, we need 20 callers, I'd be like, oh no, what if you only get 2? Then I'm done, I'm out of here. I was always afraid that the folk show was at risk of being taken away. And you know what, there was some controversy back in the 80s after changes in the music programming at NHPR. And whatever those changes were, it led listeners to rally. They really did rally, and they filled up Representatives Hall in support of folk music on the radio. So the folk community has been very vocal in New Hampshire, thankfully. So thank you if you have an interest in folk music. Thank you for that support. You were there. So the original, just let me also say that since NHPR was launched, the 3 programs that are still there, Morning Edition, All Things Considered, and the Folk Show. So that's pretty cool, right? So at one time it was called Just Folk, and then they renamed it in 1987 to Folk. Not Just Folk, Folk. And then in 1989 it became Contemporary and Traditional Folk and Acoustic Music. So I'm lucky I could say Kate McNally. I don't know if I could say that. So the CTFAM. You're listening to the CTFAM. And then in 1990, somebody said, let's just call it the Folk Show. So volunteers ran the deal for the first dozen or so years. And I got to tell you, if you asked any number of those people, like Susie Burke or Arnie Alpert or Graham Chenoweth, Patrick Hornick, some of those volunteers that were originally there, Jack Beard, if you asked them what their definition of folk music was, you'd probably get a different kind of view of their buckets. I cannot define folk music. I just can't. I have a better sense of what isn't folk music than what is folk music. So if you were expecting me to tell you what it is, sorry. So how does that relate to community? Well, I consulted the expert, Google, right? and found this definition: embedded within folk music is a rich tradition of folklore with songs often weaving together tales and narratives that have been passed down through generations. And these songs serve as a window into the cultural heritage of a community, providing insights into their values, customs, and belief systems. So I think that's pretty reasonable. Okay, I'll go with that. Pete Seeger said, I try not to get in argument over defining folk music. All definitions changed with the centuries. He wrote that in 1960. He said, the definitions of folk song and folk singers are liable to change also. What forethought. Folks will insist on it. I saw him in Peterborough at the Townhouse, and I just loved being at that show. I saw him a couple times, but that particular show was really inspiring for me because he would say, come on, sing. You can sing. Sing. Everybody can sing, and he kind of stressed, you can sing. Just do it. Sing. This is community. I just love that he pushed that. So whether you're singing Wem Away or Michael Row the Boat Ashore, Wade in the Water, or Tom Paxton's The Last Thing on My Mind, whether you like folk music or not, if you ever meet somebody like, oh, folk music, whether you like it or not, folk music with a capital F and a really broad brush, just remain open. Just remain open to the possibility that all that the genre of folk music offers. It's traditional, it's contemporary, it's a tune, it's a song, it's a story, it's a feeling. It's the glue for contra dancing or country dancing, and all that community, that's another community, the contra dancers and the Morris dancers and the country dancers. It's like warm bread, potluck dinner, a dance and a swing, a waltz and a bow. Folk music captures us in a place and time, and it catapults us to the here and the now. It's always going to be the here and now. There's something about the here and now that's ever present, even from an old song. So we keep singing, and we keep singing along, and we vow to never stop telling the stories that really matter. And to me, that's the importance of folk music. Folk songs can be sung to mourn our longing for our homelands, like in an Irish ballad, or it could be bagpipes pining across the moor. Folk songs are timeless, like blowing in the wind. This land is your land. Where have all the flowers gone? So to just kind of sum it, how many years must a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? Right? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? That's a no-brainer. When will they ever learn? This land was made for you and me. Folk songs are timeless. They're timeless. So, February 5th, 2003, my husband and I had a fire at a 1700s farmhouse in Nelson. It was owned by our landlord, Frankie Upton, and we lost everything. My husband helped me out our second-story kitchen window onto our roof where there just happened to be a wooden ladder. It led us to safety. We lost our four-legged bestie, my singing dog Merlin, and the rest of our pets, but we made it out with our lives. And the folk community rallied. We were given temporary housing, clothing, and support, and some friends held a benefit bluegrass festival inside at Keene State, and the Peterborough Folk Music Society had a benefit show, which really featured a who's who of friends, neighbors, musicians from all over. As we sat in the audience listening to the concert's MC Vance Gilbert joke and vamp as he does, we had a little respite for our loss and a sense of community that I had never experienced before. Gives me goosebumps to think about it. See, as a military dependent, I spent a lot of time feeling a bit like an interloper. Moving here, I was a visitor. I wasn't quite rooted. I wasn't really one of you, but that moment in that space with that support really changed everything about my view of my community. So let's fast forward to the pandemic. We had a virtual sing-along during the folk show. We used our Facebook group, which is called NHPR Folk, if you want to hang out with us there. It gave me goosebumps to know that folks were there during the pandemic. We'd play sing-along songs on Sunday night, and people would be singing along. And they would send pictures of themselves, or they would send videos of themselves singing. And it really did give me goosebumps to know that there were people that were in the same boat as I was, That community piece kept me grounded. It kept a lot of people grounded, I think. Music has the ability to ground us and to give us a little hope and a little home. Remember I said I pulled the Clancy Brothers 45 out of the bin? Well, when I visited the cellar hole, or the burned out portion of the house, there were a few things remaining. There was a cast iron griddle. There was a couple record albums, and it kind of reminds me of the song, the Apple and the Lilac and the Apple. Kate Wolf does that song. Well, one of the albums in that burned out basement was the Clancy Brothers and Tommy Makem. So I couldn't play it anymore. It's kind of a little warped, but and Wendy was there. She was there almost immediately with a tub of clothes, including a Folkway T-shirt, a new address book, which I now needed, and a few books. So Wendy, can we hear one more song? It's not me. Oh. They're coming to get me. I'm sorry.
Hit the ground. Hit the dirt.
So Wendy, Keith, can we please hear?
Sure. Well, we've had one song about critters. I've got a song about monkeys. It's kind of about monkeys, but it's also about refining the fine art of adulting. And there is a place now that I know you can sing. You're on the hook. And at the end, if you want to make live monkey sounds, you're free to do that too. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Take what you need, leave the rest. Getting go is just the best. Not my circus, not my monkeys. There may be high wire acts and circus clowns, elephants, girls in lacy suits hanging upside down, peanuts, popcorn, cracker jack, cotton candy too. They'll entertain you all you want, it's up to you. Not my circus, this is your part. Not my monkeys, let's try it again. Not my circus, not my monkeys, very good. Take what you need, leave the rest. Letting go is just the best. Not my circus, not my monkeys, very good. You walk your side of the street and I'll walk mine. We'll walk apart or together, and that's just fine. I've got this hula hoop all around my soul. I don't need all those monkeys to keep me whole. Not my circus, not my monkeys, very good. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Take what you need, leave the rest. Letting go, it's just the best. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Very good. Ready now. We're flying on the trapeze. Whoa, I'm scared to let it go. Yes, you gotta let go of the old one to grab onto the new one, then you will soar. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Take what you need, leave the rest. Letting go is just the best. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Let's try one more time. Not my circus,
not my monkeys.
very good. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Oh no, they're not. Take what you need, leave the rest. Letting go, it's just the best. Not my circus, not my monkeys. That's right, last time. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Okay, one more time. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Woo, woo, woo. Where here we go. Woo, 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 woo. Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
The name of Wendy's latest album with her alleged
goodness.
band, that's a real thing, Wendy Keith and her alleged band, It's About Time. Oh, go ahead.
And we have a live show next Friday night
Okay.
in Bennington at the Town
Okay.
Hall, 8 o'clock.
All right, so if you didn't get enough, go visit the monkeys. I mean, so I don't think I've defined folk music for you tonight. I think I've shared some of my experience with community, and maybe some of you will decide you want to join our folk music community in some way or another. You know, we couldn't really talk about the shows and whatnot without mentioning how important the people that put on the shows, the concert organizers, the coffee house organizers, people that put on the dances. There's Ben and Deb, Carol, Alan, Tom, Val, Larry, Liz, and Barry. That's just here in our immediate area. There's lots of volunteers who park cars and bake goodies. They do the sound. You know, they make things happen. They make it all come together and happen. I hope also I've been able to share the good fortune I've had with being connected with this community and also the folk music community. Folk, community, and good fortune. And I wish you all the best with that. And I thank you so much. If you haven't had a chance to join us on Sundays, I hope you'll try to check it out. You can also stream it online if you're really tech savvy, or you can even just turn your little dial. Maybe you have a transistor. You could find it on there. Check it out. We're Sundays 7 to 10, and then an encore on Fridays from 9 to midnight. And if you're joining us on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with us here at the Jaffrey Civic Center. Just a heads up that there's a new Stan Rogers box set in the marketplace in the coming weeks. I hope to be able to play some of the legendary Stan Rogers from the new box set. So thank you so much for hanging out with me and letting me share my story with you here.
Before we take a question or two, I want to remind everyone that thanks to the hard work of Jean Duval and Nancy Beltet, we have a wonderful reception immediately following. I want to remember a couple of things that I usually forget, one of which is to acknowledge our sponsors, the Savings Bank of Walpole and Beltet's. And I want to thank Sean Driscoll and Ed Kozik, our super audiovisual expert here. I want to say, Wendy and Tom, that this was a great treat having you.
Our pleasure.
A question or two, a comment or two. I have one. Go ahead. But I'd like to hear from anyone online. I want to say that as you were talking, I remembered when I first loved folk music. This will surprise you. I heard Burl Ives singing Kisses Sweeter Than Wine. That will date me. But my question is, what can you tell us about Willie Nelson?
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, my mother was a big fan of Willie Nelson. And I took her to see Willie Nelson. And it was really such a highlight. I was also able to take her to see Emmylou Harris. But I went to see Willie Nelson in concert, and I got to meet I took my mom to meet his harmonica player, whose name is Mickey Raphael. It was just an incredible. Sometimes I hear a song, and I'm like, that is Mickey Raphael. It's got to be, because nobody plays the harmonica like him. So there's a lot of new essential recordings from Willie Nelson that you might need to add to your songbook. But you know, when he was a young man, he played. I mean, he's been playing music for probably 85 years. You know, he's been playing for a really long time, and I just love his stuff. So, you know, I love the song "Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain." sound crazy, you know. There's just a lot of songs that I really favor by Willie Nelson, but other than that, I don't know much.
Yes.
To add, you mentioned the recent album, that the box set coming out with Stan Rogers, and you also mentioned Jim Rooney and Nancy Griffith, and he's come out with a new production that's a tribute album to Nancy Griffith, who we lost a couple of years ago, and it's called More Than a Whisper, which is a line from one of her most beautiful songs. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, Jim Rooney's new production, More Than a Whisper, a tribute to Nancy Griffith.
Yes.
Yes, Kate, I wanted to just thank you for the intimacy and the audio you bring on Sunday night. You must be mic'd very well. The audio engineer is
I
great.
like this far away.
but it's so close.
50,000 watts of funk.
So that works so good. Any upcoming folk festivals in New Hampshire you'd recommend?
The only one I know a lot of them haven't announced their lineups yet. And it's not in New Hampshire, it's actually in Maine. The Ossipee Valley one is going to be a really good one. It's always a very nice festival. And they have a river you can jump in if you want to go swimming. That's one of the benefits of that festival. But it's a very nice festival with a lot of different stages. So keep your eye out for the Ossipee Valley Festival. You can also look online at nhpr.org and check out our folk music and dance calendar. I have a volunteer that puts all that together. My friend Jim from Greenville, New Hampshire, he does that work at home. So I really rely on my volunteers to help pull that information together for you. So please utilize that. It's a great resource done by volunteers.
What's the best movie about folk music?
Oh, boy. You know, I can't think of the best movie. There's, you know, there have been some nice collections. Tom Rush has put a nice DVD together celebrating Club 47. That's a really nice one. There's also some parodies on folk music that I can't think of the name of now, but you know, I'm sure you could Google it. You know, my best friend is Google. Dr. Google.
Well, yes, I knew if I looked in the back. Stand up so we can hear you.
When you consider that everybody gets their music now in a free stream and nobody buys music anymore, what you're doing gives it value. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Next month, we have a wonderful speaker, Susie Spickle from the Harris Center. Some of you may know her. I'm sorry to say I'm going to be out of town, but Jeff Crocker, anybody here know Jeff Crocker? Has agreed to stand up here and moderate the discussion. So please come first Friday of April and bring your friends. There are half a dozen empty seats here today. I apologize for that. But thank you all so much. And next, David Beltet, the president of the Jaffrey Civic Center.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. We really enjoyed your show. And on behalf of the Jaffrey Civic Center, and we have a few gifts in here, and I might add, it was apropos that fireworks are going out.
I got my own fireworks in there?
Yeah, there are fireworks. And maybe a couple other dangers.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And please remember, everyone, we have refreshments, so stick around and have a glass of wine, a few canapes, and maybe ask Kate a few questions.
See my pictures of Del Roy Darnell. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very